Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a pretty wild realm where the lines between energy, computation, and maybe even consciousness seem to blur in truly astonishing ways. We've received some source material outlining this unified framework, moving from theoretical physics right through to practical applications. And it's all rooted in something called exact algebra.
That's right. And this isn't just, about sending power wirelessly like we've heard before or building faster computers. It's really a fundamental reimagining of how energy and matter connect. It suggests that everything, literally from the smallest photon to, say, the largest network, can be understood and manipulated with precise mathematical rules, basically getting rid of the noise and approximation we usually deal with.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, imagine a future where energy transmission is basically lossless. Computations are always provably correct. And drones, get this, drones powered not by batteries, but by, what, intention and math.
That's the gist of it, yeah, mathematical harmony.
Wow. Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then, to unpack this groundbreaking concept of a topological quantum energy computing continuum. I mean, it sounds like a totally new way to look at reality itself. All right, let's try and unpack this central, almost poetic idea. Energy is algebra. Computation is light. It sounds profound, yeah, but what does it actually mean for, how we understand things?
Well, at its heart, this framework is saying that energy isn't really separate from mathematics or even from thought. It's suggesting it's all one unified field, kind of interwoven. Think of it maybe like this. Every photon, that tiny packet of light, it's not just carrying power, it's also carrying specific information or meaning encoded right there in its frequency, its vibration.
And the source material gets specific here mathematically. It says laser power, P equal N times Planck's constant H times frequency F. Standard stuff, maybe. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. This frequency F isn't just any number. It's defined by something called spreads from rational trigonometry times the base energy E divided by H. And the ticker is S has to be a rational number, a simple fraction.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Exactly. So frequencies F aren't arbitrary, they're not approximate. They are specific rational excitations of this unity normalized field, like hitting perfect notes on an instrument, never slightly off. This exact quantization is crucial. And then there's the idea that n, the number of photons, is a cyclotomic order selected by observer focus.
Okay, observer focus, that sounds like.
Yeah, it hints pretty strongly that consciousness, our focus, plays a direct role. You're sort of selecting the harmonic, the specific operational mode with your attention.
That is fascinating. So this huge vision isn't just one idea then. It's built on three major components, all integrated. Can you walk us through those?
Absolutely. So the first pillar is algebraic topological quantum field theory, or QFT. But it's a bit different from standard QFT. It reformulates wireless energy transmission. It sees the relay stations, not just as physical points, but as topological defects. Think of them like specific points within a larger mathematical space called projective spacetime.
Okay, topological defects, projective space-time. Can you give us a quick picture for those? Sounds complex.
Yeah, think of projective spacetime like a special kind of mathematical fabric. It's not just empty space. It's structured for connection. And these topological defects are like intentional points or maybe specific folds in that fabric where energy transmission naturally happens. So wireless energy transmission isn't just beaming signals. It sort of emerges from the shape of the space.
Ah, okay, so instead of signals just fading out, energy loss in a relay chain is described differently, like Chern-class transitions.
Exactly. Like mathematical descriptions of how the shape of the energy path changes. The efficiency losses are even predicted to be rational functions of the curvature of the space.
Mind-bending. And the source mentions using topological invariants like Betty numbers. What are those, again? To minimize losses?
Right. Betty numbers basically tell you about the fundamental shape of something, like how many holes it has. By understanding these properties, you can design energy pathways that inherently minimize loss. It's about working with the geometry.
Got it. Okay, what's pillar number 2?
Pillar 2 is deterministic quantum reservoir computing, or DQRC. This is a different take on computation. It's based on these rational spreads or quadrants, as we mentioned, from rational trigonometry. What this does fundamentally is it eliminates the problems you get with irrational numbers and sampling errors in a lot of current quantum computing approaches. Those often lead to noise and uncertainty.
So if I'm following, this means computation, that is. Well, provably correct. And lossless. It gets rid of that fuzziness you sometimes hear about in quantum mechanics.
That's the idea. It shifts from probabilities to exact algebraic answers, deterministic.
Wow, okay. And the third pillar, this sounds like where it really bridges into the mind.
Yeah, the third one is this concept of a living, conscious automaton. It's described with this phrase, mythomechanical vision. Think ancient Greek automata, those self-moving statues, meets Babylonian geometry, and
Oh.
then blends that with modern systems that respond to consciousness, using ideas like the golden ratio
Mm.
and something called cyclotomic symmetry, related to those rational frequencies.
A mythomechanical vision sounds like something from science fiction. And ontological engineering, what does that mean here? What does this automaton actually do?
Good question. Ontological engineering here means building something where its very structure, its being, defines its function. This automaton isn't just programmed. Its design is its purpose. It's meant to be a kind of conscious energy channeling
Hmm.
entity. Its physical form, body, wings, arms, head, follows golden ratio proportions, which supposedly gives it inherent stability, like nature's blueprint for balance.
Okay.
Its wings are said to encode cyclotomic patterns, which relate to prime numbers, allowing it to select those beneficial frequencies for operation.
And the consciousness link.
All right, its core is powered by something called heart-generated log wavefront coherence, HGLWC. The idea is that focused intention generates coherent energy. And then there's a mind-interpreted SSVEP interface. SSVEP is steady-state visual evoked potential. Basically, your brain responds predictably to flashing lights.
Yeah.
So your focus on specific visual patterns selects that cyclotomic order we talked about earlier.
So you change its behavior with your mind through this interface.
That's the proposal. You literally tune the machine with your focus.
Yeah.
And get this, the designs even mention Elmer's slime biofield integration.
Elmer slime, like the glue.
Apparently referencing a type of biocompatible material, yeah, encoding golden ratio harmonic constraints into its physical substance, hinting at a sort of living responsive architecture. It's pretty out there.
Definitely sounds out there. Okay, so this all sounds incredibly complex, but the source keeps coming back to this key principle, rational frequency resonance. How does that simplify things or give us real benefits?
Yeah, this is where the complex physics kind of boils down to exact algebra. The framework predicts that laser photons, when used for energy transfer, should show really strong resonant peaks, specifically at rational frequency ratios. So simple fractions like 23 or 34 or 45 times some base frequency, f.
Okay, so hitting just the right note, mathematically speaking, and that makes the energy transmission unity preserving. What does that mean exactly? Like truly zero loss?
It means essentially lossless, yeah. When the system is perfectly aligned with these specific algebraic number fields, the transmission can become unity preserving. The source even says seeing these sharp peaks at exact fractions is evidence of field-level intelligence, like the field itself responds optimally to these perfect mathematical ratios.
Field level intelligence. Wow.
And this exactness also gets rid of typical random or stochastic noise. It replaces it with something called Gribner basis-constrained error correction.
Grubner basis. Sounds technical. What does that do? Like a mathematical spell checker?
Sort of. Think of it as a very precise set of rules that perfectly define how the system should operate. By sticking to these rules, derived from the algebra, errors aren't just corrected, they're inherently constrained or prevented. Combine that with topological shielding from the QFT part, and you get significant reduction in interference, like from the atmosphere.
Which means truly noiseless transmission for power, for data.
Mhm.
That's a huge deal for, well, pretty much everything.
It would be a massive leap, yes.
All right, so we have this unified theory, these pillars, this resonance idea. What are some of the really mind-blowing applications, things we could actually see built from this?
Okay, first up, self-powered quantum AI drones. Seriously, these wouldn't use batteries. They'd draw energy directly from these rational frequency lasers, traveling along topologically protected paths. Their flight paths computed by that deterministic quantum computing, the DQRC, and their movement potentially influenced by consciousness input via that SSVEP interface we mentioned.
So they become
Like mobile defects moving within that projected field structure, hopping energy losslessly from point to point.
no batteries responding to thought. That's genuinely hard to wrap my head around. What else?
Well, it extends naturally to space-based solar power. Orbital relays could use the QFT's background independence, which means space isn't just curved by mass in the usual sense, but its geometry can be actively shaped mathematically by these quadrants relationships between the relays or drones.
So gravity itself might emerge differently in this view.
Possibly. As a result of this spread-minimizing geometry, yeah, energy transmission would then follow exact polynomial S-matrix paths. Think perfectly defined energy highways with no divergence.
That sounds like an unbelievably robust space power grid. Like fundamentally different.
Exactly. And think about disaster response microgrids. Instead of needing fixed infrastructure, mobile relay stations could be deployed. They'd form nodes in a projective ride network. Power flow gets optimized by solving these Grubner basis equations to find the best routes instantly. Power flows along those exact polynomial paths, rapid, resilient energy anywhere.
Wow. And you mentioned computing. So algebraic photonic neural networks, how would they work?
Right. Forget noisy, approximate training like backpropagation. Here, you'd train networks using exact quadrants minimization. Each adjustment to a network weight would be a precise rational spread adjustment.
Meaning?
Noise-free machine learning, using only exact arithmetic. It could completely change AI development. No more statistical guesswork in the training.
That's huge. Okay, any other big ones?
Perhaps the most conceptually challenging one, space-time crystals. These aren't just materials vibrating in space. The idea is they are ontological structures oscillating in consciousness time. Their period, their rhythm, is determined by the least common multiple of those rational spread ratios involved.
Consciousness time?
Yeah. They'd stabilize when resonance hits those exact rational frequencies. It hints at achieving macroscopic, ordered states directly from these fundamental algebraic rules, possibly linked to conscious observation. Imagine a crystal structure that's literally in tune with consciousness and the universe's math.
Okay. My brain hurts a little now. That's profound.
Yeah.
But this all sounds so advanced, almost like science fiction. The source must acknowledge real-world challenges, right? How does this framework deal with things that stop our current tech?
It does. For instance, common problems like atmospheric loss during wireless transmission. That's tackled by the topological shielding concept.
Yeah.
You embed the relays in these topologically protected paths. Mathematically, paths with an Euler characteristic of 2 or more, it makes them inherently resilient to certain types of interference.
So you're not just trying to brute force the signal through the environment, you're using the underlying geometry to find a naturally protected path.
Precisely that. Working with the structure, not against it. And for laser safety, another big concern.
Yeah.
Frequencies are constrained to algebraic safe bands. You explicitly avoid problematic irrational frequencies, like the square root of 2 times the base frequency, which might have harmful interactions.
Yeah.
It's safety by mathematical design.
That makes sense. What about lining up the relays? That seems tricky.
Relay alignment could potentially be autocorrected using tools from QFT called spectral sequences. And even really complex problems in quantum computing, like quantum gate synthesis.
It's just finding the right operations for a quantum algorithm.
Exactly. That could be solved by applying these Grubner bases to find the allowed optimal rational spreads that achieve the desired gate. It turns a search problem into an algebraic calculation.
So the math provides solutions to these practical engineering hurdles, too. It's not just theory.
That's the claim, yes.
And what's really exciting is that this isn't just staying theoretical. The source material mentions a comprehensive simulation framework for testing this out, right? What can we learn from that?
Right. The simulation allows for real-time positioning of these relay stations as mobile defects, moving around in that projective space-time model. Crucially, it tests for that enhanced efficiency at rational frequency ratios, looking specifically for peaks at 23, 34, 45 times the base frequency. This would be direct validation of the algebraic field quantization idea.
So you can actually see if the energy flows better at these exact fractions in the simulation.
Yes, and it monitors the unity-preserving efficiency calculations. Using that past notation from quantum mechanics, it tracks energy loss, even those Chern-class transitions, those mathematical wrinkles, in real time.
So we can literally watch the physics compile itself according to these rules.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, it provides field space observation, tracking QFT parameters like curvature, field gradients, and checking the quadrants calculations from rational geometry. It's really a foundational step toward maybe building physical prototypes, starting simple, maybe 2 or 3 relays, just to test these very specific, very exact predictions in the real world.
Fascinating. So wrapping this up, what we've really explored today isn't just interdisciplinary science. It feels like something more fundamental.
I think that's fair to say. It's proposing a deep redefinition of the unity between energy, matter, and information. It argues they aren't really separate things at all. Energy, information, maybe even intention, they're all just aspects of one single, coherent, mathematically precise system.
So each photon isn't just energy, it's also meaning. And the whole network acts like a kind of conscious algebraic machine, resonant, adaptive, Alive, almost.
That's the picture it paints. This isn't just presented as a new type of quantum AI or a better photonic network. The source calls it a new ontological class of physics, a new category of how things can exist and interact.
Wow, a new ontological class.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? I think it means pushing the boundaries of what we even consider possible. Moving towards maybe seeing reality itself as a kind of system. A system that can be precisely understood, maybe even, well, compiled, like code, through these exact algebraic rules and potentially through the direct influence of consciousness.
It definitely leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If energy really is algebra and computation is light, what happens when we fully grasp that consciousness might be the ultimate compiler, shaping reality with intention through math? Lots to ponder there. Keep thinking, and we'll dive deeper next time.